right, team. Welcome to the Boulder Athlete Podcast. I'm Josh, and today I'm hanging out with Eric Moore. And Eric, you are an OG CrossFitter. I'm going to go through a list of things here that is a really cool intro. First off, Eric, you're 56 years old. You're a husband and father of 3 with 1 boy and 2 girls. You're a former college football player and track athlete. You are retired from the Coast Guard with over 22 years of active service. I believe you said you're now a relationship manager, which I want to talk about what that is. You live in North Carolina. You train at a C2X Academy and S3 CrossFit. And as I started off with, you're a Boulder OG, maybe the best characteristic of all. But Eric, it's really good to have you on, man, and I'm excited to chat with you.
It's good to be on, Josh. I appreciate it.
Yeah, right on. Well, I'd love to get into your background. You shared, as I said, a lot of detail, and shout out to those future guests on the podcast. I love it when you share all the detail in advance because it gives me such a good picture of where you've spent time and energy over the course of your life, and it gives me a really good sense of like, man, I think that would be a compelling topic to get into, and I think you probably have some unique perspective there. And so, as I said, you shared a bunch. So there are several things I want to get into, and in no particular order, I'd like to get into the Coast Guard. 22 years of the Coast Guard, like that's a big deal. And
Yeah.
22 years of service there. Thank you for your service. What is life in the Coast Guard like? Can you help paint that picture for me? What does that look like?
Yeah, and it's a quick correction there. I spent a little over 7 years active duty. Then I got out in '98 following the birth of my first son. Long story short, got out. I took what's called the 2-year sabbatical, and then when I was time for me to go back in, my mother had some health problems, and so I didn't go back. So that was a big decision not to go back. And then not long after that, 9/11 happened, and then that gave me I guess the inspiration or the desire to go back and see if I can't serve. So I went back as a reservist and did the next 15 years as a reservist, which
Hmm.
is definitely a different perspective of how we serve, but it was still a great time altogether.
Yeah, right on. Well, that's cool that you felt called to go back and serve and did that. It's great that you served initially. Um, I'm trying to picture the experience of being in the Coast Guard as an active member of the service and then being a reservist. What does either one of those look like? And maybe what are the differences that we might not understand?
Yeah, I mean, I would say active duty. It was the life. So that was full immersion of military life. My wife and I lived on base for a few years, and we were fortunate enough to be stationed somewhat close to home along the East Coast for most of the active duty time. Actually, even my reserve time, various parts of the East Coast. And we were just that was it. That was the life. When we had our son, my wife backed away from teaching for a while, so we were just all in on the military for those 7 years. And I spent 4 years on a ship, so I was in and out of ports, out and about in the Caribbean and in the North Atlantic, doing law enforcement from anything from fisheries to drug enforcement, and spent a lot of time on a steel deck. That's where I got my workouts in as best as possible, bouncing around in the seas and doing a lot of jump rope. But so that was active duty. And then the reserve side was quite a bit different because you are living what I'll say a non-military life, a civilian life, had a job, had a family, sports, all that kind of fun stuff. And then once a month, I would put on the uniform and go to my unit for the weekend and drill, train, do all those things that reservists do in preparation for that 2-week training period once a year. And then that was all largely in preparation for, if we ever got the call to get back to active duty.
Right on. Okay. So is it accurate to say that like I'm going to totally butcher these terms. I don't know anything about the Coast Guard, but like your jurisdiction is really on the water. You're patrolling the water and enforcing law on the water. Do you have any jurisdiction on land? Are you serving on land in some capacity as well?
No, I mean, generally our jurisdictions on the water are search and rescue. Some of our main missions all are water based, and aids to navigation and seaways and waterways and all that stuff is definitely water based. But I spent 15 years all my reserve time on shore at shore units, basically working to promote the mission that was either local, offshore, local units, or longer range missions, out at sea with bigger cutters.
What I'm having a vision. I'm not going to come up with the name of this movie, but it had Ashton Kutcher and Kevin Costner in it. I think it was a Coast Guard based movie. So that's what I'm going off of right now.
Yeah.
As I picture you training, what are you doing some of these things? that they're doing in the movie?
No, that's a whole different aspect of the Coast Guard and rescue
Okay.
swimmers and air stations, and I everything I did was usually uh, boats, ships, that kind of stuff. I didn't do the air training or the rescue swimmer training, but that
Okay.
was definitely a great movie though, and showed
Eh,
a glorious part of the Coast Guard, and also a really demanding part. I mean, we just recently lost a member out in Alaska, out there doing the job in a very risky scenario, and I don't even know the details of the situation, but I just know he didn't make it, and that's always rough when that happens. So it's certainly a lot of glorious fun when you see it on TV and you see the rescues, but certainly a very dangerous mission, and yeah, some bad things can happen, unfortunately.
yeah, that certainly is unfortunate. I'm also thinking of the bonds that you build in an environment like that when there is, shared suffering, there's very crystal clear shared focus and shared objectives and a shared mission, and the kinds of relationships that that can create is hard to replicate really in any. Now there's several environments that do those things. This I think is definitely one of them. I'm sure you've built some pretty lasting relationships as a part of that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's really not terribly unlike the communities that we have been involved with in the fitness, and just even thinking in the world of Boulder the last couple of years, and at small micro scales, those same bonds, those same communities you make those same relationships, and they'll last whether it's via text or via phone or meeting up. It's very similar for sure.
Well, I'm glad you said that because I was making the connection in my mind, but I have no authority to make that statement. So
Yeah,
thank you. Yeah, it does feel similar. There is shared suffering, there are shared circumstances, but obviously the circumstances vary by degree.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
So something else I want to get into is your background in athletics. Not everybody that we have on the podcast, or certainly not everybody who's doing CrossFit or part of Boulder, has a background in athletics. Several do, but not everybody does. In this case, you do. And so you had shared that you had played Division 3 college football. Were you also a track athlete at the same school, Division 3 school?
Yes.
Okay, so athletics has been a part of your life for a long time. You're clearly still very athletic and keeping yourself fit, and it's been a big part of your life, and you had shared that. You also shared that you've got 3 kids. I think they're all college. They're in college, and I think you said that they're all athletes in college as well, playing college sports. Is that right?
Yeah, a couple of them have graduated already, which is crazy to think about. But my son, he's going to be 28 here in a month. He wrestled at Virginia Tech and had a great time. That was an awesome experience for both of us.
Mhm.
My daughter played competitive rec soccer at a big D1 school. She probably could have played somewhere, but she wanted the big school experience.
Yeah.
So she jumped on to a competitive rec league, but had some great experience there for a few years. And then my youngest, who's also at Virginia Tech, is a dancer there. So she's been dancing for 4 years, and my baby's getting ready to graduate. It's crazy.
Yeah,
Not about a month from now, so I'm going to be real weepy in about a month, I think.
I can only imagine. I've got a 13-year-old daughter who's about to graduate 8th grade, make the transition into our local high
Awesome,
school. That's gonna be a big deal, but she's staying right here. She's
nice.
gonna be close. My little guy's 9. He's not going anywhere for a while,
Yeah,
so I don't know how
that's
I'm
awesome.
gonna hold it together when we get to
Yeah,
your
I'm
season of
looking
life.
forward to it.
So that's really cool. What I wanna get to is, and I would love your perspective, and I think others would appreciate your perspective as well, is I'm making the assumption that your way of life impacted your kid's way of life. I don't think that's a stretch. And so I'm curious how you think that played out. Your kids seeing you, they're athletic now, they're in college, sounds like graduated or soon to graduate college, so thriving both academically and athletically. Like what impact do you think your athletic background and seeing the consistency that you've demonstrated around your own health and fitness has done in their lives? How did you approach that as well? It's kind of a two-part question. What's the impact? And then I'm sure you were recognizing that. How did you navigate that to help them lead healthy lives?
Yeah, it's funny that the quick knee jerk funny story is when my son was born. That how that first couple of months is it's just overwhelming and both a positive and oh my gosh, I'm a parent for the first time. I don't know what the heck I'm doing, and by
Mhm.
the way, I still want to work out. And so there were times that I would work out with Ryan. I'd have him in my hands and we'd be doing squats, we'd be doing core stuff together. And my wife's like, "What are you doing with our son?" And I'm like, "Just working out." And but aside from that, I think probably the biggest connection was just the consistency of the example over 20 plus years, where wherever we were at as a family, I was looking for some way to be able to find 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes to run, do something. And I think that consistency over years, probably helped. And then yeah, obviously getting them into sports and not wanting to push them in any one direction, but getting them exposed and seeing where their passions were and sort of feeding those passions and then continuing to get that. And it didn't happen overnight. There were probably my son and I, when he wrestled in high school, it was the biggest fight to sometimes get him to do the things that dad felt he needed to do to
Yeah.
be successful. But at some point that switch flipped for him and he's been all in for the last 5 or 6 years. He pushes me. It's been fun to see, him and all three of them kind of come along.
That's so cool. And I want to like really dig into the comment that you just made because that's the one I'm experiencing some of that right now. And I'm sure parents are going through this. When you're making the observation, like, if you want to accomplish what you want to accomplish, you probably got to put in the work, and it's not a probably, it's like this is a fact. So trying to nudge your kids and encourage your kids in a healthy way without, them pushing back and ultimately not doing those things out of spite. And then you said the switch flipped for him. Talk me through like how you kind of approached that encouragement and when the switch flipped, how the switch flipped. I'd love your insights on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think for and it was probably different for a different experience with all three kids. With Ryan, it was I think when he realized he was committed to the sport that he was playing and felt like he could do well at this sport, and it was one of those ones that it required just work. It was you didn't have to be overly athletic. You just had to work harder than the next guy. You had to pay attention. You had to do the right things, eating wise and cutting weight, because wrestling is a multidimensional sport. You're fighting the guy in front of you, you're fighting your weight, you're fighting sleep, all those fun things. And so when he realized that he liked that, and then I think hopefully again the example set over the years and sort of nudging in the right direction, got him to that point where it's like, Dad, I want to do this. I want to do the right things. And can you help me? And I couldn't help him on the mat, of course, because I'd never wrestled. I couldn't do that stuff. But we worked together. We figured out ways to be able to work out, condition, lift weights together, and then he went to college, and they did that for him, and now he comes back and we do that stuff together. We'll once in a while we'll be in the gym, we're working out together. I'll push him through some wads, he'll push me through some other conditioning work, and it's been a lot of fun. So he was different than my daughter, my middle daughter. She was always a rule follower, and she just
Mm, mm.
locked into soccer. That was her sport. And whatever I told her, she just sucked it up. She's just like, okay, Dad, let's go do that. We want to go out and do some dribbles. And then we did that until she beat me. And then after that, it was like, well, you go out and practice. But
Yeah.
yeah, so she was great. And then Katie was probably somewhere in between. She loved to dance, and I couldn't help much there. But seeing her now in college, because it's not just dance, they do a lot of stuff. I mean, they lift twice a week, 6:30 in the morning. They do conditioning, and she's the same way. She comes back home and she's like, "Here's my lift card, Dad. Let's figure out how we can get this fit in while I'm here for the week or here for a couple of days." And it's a great experience seeing that. So
Yeah.
warms
How
my heart.
is that? It totally warms your heart. Yeah, as it should. And I mean, that's a long game that you played, right? You know that if you push too hard too early, it could go sideways and it may never recover. And so you're really sensitive to that. And, some are very aware of that and some are not aware, unfortunately. And they do push
Mm,
too hard too early and it goes off the rails. And man, that's a really difficult set of circumstances. But
yeah.
navigate it really intentionally over, gosh, your kids are in their 20s, I think, I'm guessing. That's a long game, and you gotta do it the right way, and you gotta do it differently per kid, and that's really cool, and that's the art of parenting, and kudos to you and your wife for navigating that so successfully. That's
Yeah.
seeing your kids thrive is about the most satisfying thing.
Yeah, you said a good thing there, because certainly a linchpin in all this is my wife, and she would say she's not the athletic one, but she's the glue that kept it all together while we were doing it, and kept us
Mhm.
fed and kept us on good diets, and just was just an amazing partner in this whole process over the years.
Shout out to the wife, and, my wife falls in that category as well. She is a really good athlete, actually, but she is very much the glue and the fuel and the engine that drives this whole
Yeah,
darn house and keeps us on the rails, and
yeah,
yeah,
we'd
I
be off the rails if it wasn't for her, for sure.
yes, we would. I shudder to think what this family would look like without her, so very cool. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's inspiring, and I hope folks find some relatability in that. I've got some other areas I'd love to get into, Eric. I gotta navigate my screen here because I lost it. Oh, yeah. So this you mentioned this, you kinda glossed over it in your detail, but it was a really interesting fact. You'd won this world championship, DECA, if I'm saying that right, DECA Strong World Championship in 2024.
Yeah.
Am I
Yeah.
saying that right? Tell me about that. I
Yep.
don't know anything about it, but anytime you're talking about a world championship, strong man type competition, that's pretty cool and impressive. So give me
Yeah,
this.
I feel like there'd be some, there's definitely some cross applicability to what we do. But well, Spartan, I'm sure Spartan races. So some years ago, I don't even remember when, but there's a DECA uh, concept that grew out of Spartan. So it's part of Spartan. So if you go to Spartan programs, click on DECA and you can learn about it.
Okay.
And basically it's a functional fitness competition, if you will, but competition with yourself or with others, however you want to do it. And there's different aspects of it. So the foundation is 10 zones of work, but they're the zones that work that we typically do. It's got a row, it's got a ski, it's got an echo bike, it's got reverse lunges. They've got these sort of patented what I call ram weights, or they're cylindrical weights of different. So you throw one on your shoulder, you do some reverse lunges, and then later on you do some burpees with them. And it's got some burpees, it's got some sit ups with the medicine ball, so a sled push pull, a box over, and I'm probably missing one, a dead ball over. So functional things that we see in a lot of our CrossFit workouts. And so the DECA Strong is just all 10 zones for as fast as you can do it. They have
Hmm.
a DECA Mile, which adds a little bit of running in between each zone. So you run 160 meters in between each zone, but then you do the same 10 zones again for time. And then the DECA Fit is a 500-meter run between zones. So it's a 5K. So it gets a little more, more running, different pacing strategy for sure. And they've got some other ones too. They've got a new DECA Atlas, which is really cool. It's more strongman focused, no machines, and they've got some ruck versions. And so that's a concept. They've got a leaderboard that they run for about 9 months a year. It's probably a little longer than that. And then the top of the leaderboard, they've got an elite, just like our individual section, and they run this world championship, and then they have age groups. And yeah, so in 2024, I qualified and went down to Florida and qualified for the mile and the strong, and managed to win the strong by about 2 seconds for the world championships. Yeah, that was pretty
Well,
cool.
that's really cool. I mean, I can't help but think of like some of this Hyroxy smell that it has, and I mean, and Hyrox,
A little less running.
say
Yeah,
what?
little less running for
Yeah,
sure.
a little less rain.
Uh,
High Rocks are doing 1,000-meter runs. I think there's 8 of them total, and then 8 stations, or
yep,
they're just
8 zones.
between the state. Maybe it's 6 stations between the 1K runs. I'm not sure, but, yeah, the concept of that is really cool. How long has DECA been around? I've never heard of it.
It's
Not that
been
I
around for boy,
familiar with that.
at least 3 or 4, maybe 5 years. So they run some larger the DECA Fit competitions are throughout the world. Actually, there's a number of them here in the country, and there's some overseas. It's big. It's big in Europe and overseas internationally. But they have affiliates. So like my gym C2X is an affiliate for DECA. So we run every 2 or 3 months, we'll run a local affiliate competition, and people will join in, and we'll run the strong, we'll run the mile. Sometimes we'll run the ruck, and we just we have judges. We judge them through. We get their times, they get their marks, they get their T-shirt and their medal, and then we post it. And it's an awesome neat community. People come back for more. They're trying to get better, or people are just trying to stay fit. So this, you do it for competition, you do it for fun. It's a good time. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just yesterday, I was at the office at work, and someone's like, "Hey, Josh, what do you think about High Rocks?" And, look, I'm up for anything that gets people motivated to go exercise, and it gives them an opportunity to go quantify their fitness and do it next to people and build relationships. Like, there it is all good. That is just nothing but goodness. And whatever form that takes on, as long as it's controlled and safe and all that, is awesome. This sounds really, really cool. I'm gonna have to do a little bit of research to check this out. So you had mentioned that you would like run some local affiliates. The performances at that local competition, would those then get posted to like a worldwide leaderboard?
Yep. Yep, that's
Really?
how that
Okay.
works.
That's
So,
super cool.
so we have to be, we have to have our judging's got to be on point, just like CrossFit judges. They haven't matured enough yet where they've got qualifications or certifications for those judges, but the affiliate owner is in charge of making sure that their judges know the zones, know the standards, and judge to those standards. Particularly those that are coming in with good times that are going to be high up on that leaderboard. We want to make
Yeah.
sure that we're putting people up there with the right. the right scores, the right movements. But yeah, it's great fun, and I haven't done high rocks. It's on my list for sure.
Hmm.
Um, and the great thing about the DECA program is it offers a variation. So it's not just one. Yeah, not that high rocks is bad, but
Yeah.
you can, if you just want to do the events, the zones, the DECA Strong. You're not a big runner, but you can pull a ski or you can pull a row, and you're fairly good condition. Then the DECA Strong is a great option. A little bit of running, you got the DECA Mile, and if you want a little more running, do the DECA Fit. So there's something there for everybody.
Yeah, that's smart. Accommodating some different athlete types and setting people up for success there. That's super cool. I'm already thinking of some athletes. I'm like, man, I bet you they, the way they're built, would do really well at something like that. I'm gonna have to investigate that further. So you
Yeah.
had said now you won it in 2024,
Yep.
and you couldn't do it in 20. I'm sure you were just riding high, thinking you found your new gig, and then in 2025, I think you couldn't do it. And why was that?
Yeah, so I tore my rotator cuff really bad in training for the semifinals for CrossFit for last year, and that's a funny story too. But I made it through the semifinals, but I got surgery in July last year, so I tried to make it back in time. I was too far ahead of, or it was too close. I needed more time. I tried to make a push, but it still started flaring up. So I was like, well, it's not worth it. So I need to
Yeah.
knock it back down, get back to rehab. So yeah, I missed an opportunity to go back, but maybe this year.
Okay, I was gonna say, is this back on the radar? How's the
Yeah.
shoulder feeling? How's the body feeling? You're healthy and ready to go?
It's coming along. It's 9 months post surgery, and it's as slow as I read about and everybody told me about. It takes time to get this joint, back to function. I had a full thickness tear my supraspinatus, so I could see my bicep tendon through a tendon that I wasn't supposed to see with the imaging. So it's been long. I probably, you get to that point where, hey, I'm starting to feel better, and then you just push a little bit too hard and you get a little bit of setback. So I'm trying to avoid making that mistake too many times. Remember, I had this conversation with Jason about this year's game cycle, and I was like, all right, Jason, I think I'm gonna try to get to the open, get top 25%, be careful of the shoulder, see how another 3 or 4 weeks feels the quarters, and then take it from there. Uh, open kind of flared me up a little bit, and I made it, but I was like, yeah, I can't do quarters. I'm going to just mess myself up for the future in the long games.
All right, so
As much as,
you've officially made the decision then you're gonna push pause, get
yeah,
healthy.
yeah,
Okay. All right. Well, that's you. So I hope that's the right decision and certainly supportive. Another area that I want to get into that I thought was really interesting. You said this is kind of like on your journey of getting into CrossFit. And you said you went to MFC, Masters Fitness Championship, a really good, really well run competition. I think it's held in Indiana.
yep.
If
Fort
I'm
Wayne.
Yeah, and, so you said you went in 2023, you were early in your CrossFit career, and you said you felt like an imposter being there, and that word grabbed me, and ultimately because I'm guessing the reason that you said that was because when you got there, you felt like maybe you were out of your league, and so, like, "Should I be here? Do I deserve to be here?" That kind of a thing, but I would love to hear, like, how the experience actually went. Did you feel like an imposter? What was your experience like at MFC, and what would you say to others that are thinking about going to a competition of that level?
Yeah. Great question. So yeah, I did feel like an imposter, and maybe it was more of a, I don't feel like I'm ready for this yet. So probably a combination, and then just getting there, my first competition, and it was a, fairly big one. So just looking around and seeing hundreds of fit people, 100 people that are like, in my mind, I've been doing this for years and I've been doing this for 8 months. I'm like, what am I doing here? And my son came, he was my coach that weekend.
Oh, right on.
So that was fun. So it was kind of fun to have him try to take me down, like, "Hey, calm down. You can do this." And so he did that throughout the different events. Yeah, it was, each event we would line up and I just see these guys next to me and I'm like, "What the heck?" And then the first event happened and I didn't die. It felt like, okay, well, that was not too bad. And then the next one came up, same thing, all nervous. Like, a few years later, I'm still feeling the same way when I
Oh, yeah.
get there. But it after a few events, I started feeling a little bit better. You know, I don't even know if I can remember all of it because it was such a blur. But at the end of it, it worked out pretty good. I ended up seventh. I was hoping to get the top half. That was the goal. I didn't
Yeah.
think I'd get there, but that's how it worked out. So I was like, okay, this is cool. I like this. Maybe I'll do this one again.
So you weren't an imposter at all.
Well,
You've
I probably got a little lucky with some of the workouts. They helped me out. They didn't expose my weaknesses because at that point my gymnastics was not awesome. I think I was able to get through a couple things that just enough to get by, but it was a good time.
I've not done MFC. In what I'm about to say could be totally a false statement, so you have more experience than I do. Based on what I know, that it feels like it's kind of a heavier competition, like the loads tend to be a little bit heavier, as every competition has a little bit of, like, their signature. Is it fair to say that MFC is, like, on the heavier side?
Uh, I don't have a huge bank of competitions to judge that by. Certainly based on having gone through a few cycles of the Open and quarterfinals, and they had it probably a little bit heavier. But I wouldn't say I think Legends is heavier from what I've heard. I'd love to
Mhm.
go out there. Maybe that's a target in the future. But it was certainly well rounded. I would say good weights, good mix of movements. Loved it. It was a good time.
That's really cool. It's still definitely on my list. I know Jamie Free, who I don't think he runs it. He's very involved with it. I think he's part of the leadership team there. Really good guy. And yeah, that's on my list of competitions I need to experience at some point, and it's got a great reputation. What
Yeah.
I'm trying to also get at here is for those that are thinking about, should I do a competition? You had that
Mhm.
moment. I think you were questioning, like,
Right.
should I not do this? Ultimately, you obviously did. And then you ended up placing seventh. You felt like an imposter, but you did really well. Coming out of that, what changed for you? Like, I could guess at some things, but like, were you more motivated? Were you more confident? Like, were you
Yeah.
less confident? I don't know. Tell me what was it like coming
Yeah.
out?
I think that to answer your first question, anyone that's in that sort of decision period, it's their first one, and should I, shouldn't I? And I think it's worth taking that first one. Even if you're not sure a competitive path is what you want to do, you know, jumping on one and going through it. And I would have felt the same way whether I finished 7th or 15th. If I was last, I still would have come away with that feeling. That was an awesome experience. I loved the people I met. Came back to that community, people I met for 3 days. I'm in touch with. I met Jason for the first time out there that year. That was awesome. That's what kind of got me on the path of actually, it was 2024 maybe, but I had known about Jason for sure. Yeah, I think just coming out of that, it was a great experience, and for me, I think I'd like to do that again, and got me on a nice trajectory to start like, and okay, how do I fix my weaknesses? How do I get a little bit better so the next one I can try to do a little bit better on. And if I had come away with that feeling, that was fun, but that's not my gig, then that would have been all right. But I think taking that first shot and going forward is a great thing to do if somebody has not that opportunity.
Yeah, that's really well said. The other element of this is, like, there's the performance piece, which, yeah, that will be whatever it is. Hey, you walk away with first or 15th or 30th or whatever it is. There's a performance element. There's also the relationships that you build, the people that you meet when you're there, and you quickly recognize, like, other people are kinda in the same boat I am. There's actually a
Yeah,
lot of
100%.
people that are doing this for the first time and kinda just like me, and that's a really powerful moment of acknowledgement when you're like, "Oh, I'm not the outlier here." Like, no, there's
Yeah.
a lot of people that fall into a very similar camp, and that can be a powerful and really inspiring moment, especially when you get connected and build some relationships with those folks. But then as you go home and you kind of re-enter normal life again and get back in the daily routine, it can be a really good source of motivation to know that you're just like a number of others, but also you kind of get the bug of like, I might want to do this again, which you said.
Mhm.
I don't know, I find it really good for me to have these check-in moments, and at one point, it was like local competitions, and that's all I did, and I had never done a big competition, actually. Fittest to the Coast was my first no, I guess I did the CrossFit Games in 2024. That was my first big competition. Then it was
Wow,
Fittest
that's
to the
awesome.
Coast, and then now I'm like, "Okay, I need to figure out a way to have those moments where I can check in on my fitness with some really good athletes around me, but I'm super extrinsically motivated, and so I kinda need those things to pull me along and keep me going over the course of the year, but I still encourage other folks, find a local comp, find something just because the relationships are a powerful element of it, and then figuring out kinda where you stand from a performance perspective, if that's more your thing and motivator, you're certainly gonna get some, powerful data there as well.
Yeah, yeah. And that's a great point. I would say that, at some point, your first thought is, whether it's local or a big one, is, "Holy cow, everybody here is better than me." But then you do realize after a few events and a day or so into this that you're looking around, you're seeing a lot of people, and you're starting to talk and realize that you're not the only one there doing this for your first time or second time. And a lot of people are in that same, there's probably more people in that boat than the people that have been there doing it for a long
Yeah,
time and don't have that same sort of, I don't say fear, but that same apprehension. But yeah, and then, hey, at the end of the day, you check that box and you said, hey, I did something hard. That's cool.
that's right. Heck yeah. So you also touched on when you met Jason, and I think that was part of the catalyst for joining Boulder, if I've got that right. Tell me about that experience. I've heard from many that have said it was when they met Jason, they got on Boulder shortly after, and which kudos to Jason. He's great marketing material for us.
Sure.
But it speaks to, like, who he is as a person as well, which I know well, and I definitely appreciate. But, like, talk to me about you joining Boulder, what that was like and what your experience has been like since.
Yeah, yeah, and I'll preface that real quick to say my first exposure to Jason was the year before I even started CrossFit. So this was in 2022. It was around the time of the games, and I watched a little bit of it, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And I'd seen that before in the past, but it never really triggered me to do something. And I saw it in, I think it was the August of 2022 or something like that. And then somewhere in that, maybe I was doing my algorithm and my Instagram, and suddenly Jason started popping up. And that's how I started seeing this guy. I'm like, holy cow, this guy's incredible.
Mhm.
The consistency and, the ability that he's doing this at, I think at the time, like 47 or 48. And so I started following him. And then that's a whole, then I joined S3 CrossFit just to start to try to get some exposure and try to get some skills and some things that I didn't do. Fast forward to, getting through MFC 2023. And I think I'd even reached out to him a few times through text in 2024 before MFC. So I was heading in that direction already, largely at just being motivated by him and his posts and his podcasts and the things that he put out there, and then meeting him in person. First of all, I thought I was, meeting a star. It's like, holy cow, this is, it's
Yep.
Jason. I felt I probably was this little kid, like, you getting my camera. I'm like, Jason, do you mind? Can we take a picture? So he probably thought I was a bumbling fool for a little bit at first, but yeah, that meeting, his energy, it's infectious. It wasn't a hard decision after that to join Boulder as soon as it was available.
Yeah, that's really cool. What's your experience been like? I think you've been with Boulder now a little over 2 years. Yeah, talk to me about, like, what stands out to you? What do you appreciate about Boulder all up, whether it's community programming, what is it?
Yeah, boy, a lot of things. Certainly the community. I have to start with that one because you said it. Seeing a bunch of people, and boy, seeing the people that have just continued to jump on this program has been amazing, fascinating.
Mhm.
And then, again, there's been a few people I've been able to reach out to and start building a relationship with here and there, and checking in on them now and again, which is kind of cool. And the programming has been, awesome. It's been great. There are some days I'm cursing. I'm going, "What the heck, Jason? This was crazy."
Oh,
And I've just, seen some incredible, self improvements in both my skills and my fitness level over the year, over a couple of years. And I'm sure it helped me in that DECA, just general fitness, got me through, pushing through, 10 zones and beating this guy by 3 burpees to the end there. It definitely helped out. So loved
that's
it.
cool.
I love every bit of it. I try to do the best I can with my shoulder. I'll look at the day and figure out what I can and can't do, but I'm still trying to get the stimulus in. And yeah, it's an awesome deal.
Oh, well, thanks for sharing that. I am completely biased, and so, yes, I also agree with much of what you said, but I'm doing it, as an athlete as well, and so I feel all the benefits that our athletes and members of the community feel, and I see it from a couple different perspectives, and so, yeah, I'm totally biased, but I love it when people share their stories of how they've come to Boulder, what their experience has been like, things that they find uniquely valuable given where they are in life and the things that they're going through. I think that's pretty cool. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. So one other thing I'd say too is somewhat of a lone wolf when it comes to training. I'm just as fine being in a gym by myself, some music and doing my stuff in the garage, wherever I'm at. And sometimes I always wonder, do I lose that edge, not being with somebody to be able to push myself a little bit harder. But I find with the Boulder and the community and, the leaderboard, to the extent to pay attention to that, but that gives me enough drive. I feel like I'm going to push a little bit harder because I just want to show up. And so I think that program drives a lot in motivating and driving to do hard things the best we can, even as a lone wolf.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'd be really interested to know how many members of the masters community operate kind of as a lone wolf, working out of their garage versus those that go to a gym and work out. Well, it's kind of the hybrid because there's the workout in the garage by yourself. There's the go to the gym and you do it in off hours kind of by yourself. And then there's go to the
Yeah.
gym and you do it as part of a class in a community. And there's, different variations of that as well. But my suspicion is there's actually a lot of people working out of their garage. You've got a life, you got a full set of responsibilities, and doing it at home can obviously accommodate a lot of those responsibilities because you kind of sneak it in where you can. I've heard so many stories of people that do that. I have no sense of how big that audience is or what the ratio is like between those that go to the gym and those that do it at the garage. But man, I feel if I had to make a guess, if I was to draw a line in the sand between the elites and the masters community, I would say there's more at home gym goers in the masters community than the elite category. I could be wrong, but that would be my guess at least. And so I hope that Boulder is providing that sense of community as best you can digitally,
Yep.
by connecting people on the leaderboard and doing things like this. Honestly, this was a big reason for doing the podcast was people are doing this in silence, in their garage and have these incredible stories that, man, we need to tell these stories more. And that was definitely a driving force behind this, kicking this podcast off.
Yeah. And this podcast has been awesome. I've listened to a ton of them doing zone two work or what have you. Or they're inspirational and it's cool to see the community in that, because we're largely in that digital space.
Yeah, right on. So now you brought up the leaderboard. So we're kind of just dancing around this leaderboard. And you also made a comment that is perfectly timed. We need to get to it now. You said you're kind of quirky and you're obsessed with leaderboards. Talk to me about that. What does that look like for you? What do you mean by that? And what's the deal with the leaderboard?
That's a dark side there. I think it's just an analytical aspect of looking at the leaderboard and and trying to see how I'm doing compared to other people and that on that leaderboard. And boy, I can even think of last year in the semifinals, just sort of watching. I guess it was. Actually, I'm trying to think of how that played out last year, but I can remember just scouring over those top 30 people because I was even in my diminished state, I was so close. And so I was just watching and seeing. I think it was during the video review is where I was doing it. Like, okay, watching some videos and going, okay, well, if that changes and well, that can change. And so I just find myself looking at playing games with myself. A lot of times it's when I'm not competing. So I'm watching a leaderboard, and especially now, I've so much FOMO seeing some of these things come and go and seeing Fittest of the Coast and jumping on that leaderboard. And I spent probably too much time on that weekend looking at that and sort of seeing, oh, hey, if I'd done this and done that, maybe I could have been here, and just trying to get some taste of that competition through that, watching that leaderboard and spending too much time on it. I'm sure my wife was like shaking her head a bunch of times that weekend.
Well, it's certainly the worst things you could be doing. So
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
monitoring leaderboards is safe in my book. Yeah, that's funny to hear you say that. I don't know how I would categorize myself when it comes to leaderboard. I'm definitely interested. I look at it. Sometimes I look at the leaderboard before a workout. Sometimes I intentionally avoid the leaderboard until afterwards because
Yeah,
I need to extract the effort without that information because in a competition, you don't have it. So you need to be
100%.
able to just really find the way to push yourself to the best of your abilities. Something I've been working on over the past year, and
Yeah,
I know some folks that are absolutely obsessed with the leaderboard and just can't operate without it. And I just, we need all those people, and
yeah,
it's sometimes humorous, sometimes a little bit of a stirs the pot, sometimes a little crazy, but
yeah.
it can be a
Well, I
real.
did that the other day. The funny you should say that with the Tabata. And I purposely didn't look. I was like, I don't want to look. Sometimes it's good because then you're like, oh shoot, people are getting that. I need to work a little harder. But I for the same reason, I didn't want to look at it. I just wanted to see where my effort would put me, and then goes. At that point, I made the better decision versus pouring over it first and trying to figure it out. But
Was this the Echo bike?
that was
Yeah.
rough.
That was nasty.
That
That
was
is
nasty.
one I looked at before and I saw and I was like, "Oh, man, that's a lot of calories accumulated." So I went and did a little bit of math. I'm like, how many calories do I need to average? And so sometimes, depending on kind of where I'm at for the day, that's what I have to do to get my effort really cranked up. If
Yep.
I'm like dragging, well, I need to just put a number out there that now I have to go achieve that. And that's
Mm.
how I get myself to really push. And some days I avoid that. As I said, I don't want that information because I'm motivated enough. Now I just need to prove it. But it's funny. I was a couple buddies and I we were just chatting on the text string about that workout in particular, and boy, that's
Yeah.
just I was
You put up a
wobbling.
good number that one though. You did good.
Yeah, thankfully. Well, I had to game it for myself, but yeah, a
Yeah.
buddy of mine who shall not be named cherry picked the heck out of that and came back to it today to do it.
I think I saw that.
Yeah. And then he texts me to let me know. We won't get
That's
into that.
that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, he knows who he is. Let's see. I think we've hit on all the things here. Eric, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I'm glad we got a chance to talk. Yeah, I would really enjoy staying connected as well. Your name has been a part of this community for a long time, and I've seen it, and we've met briefly at Fittest to the Coast in 2024. Yeah, I've really been hoping we'd have the opportunity to do this for a while now. So I'm really grateful we did, and I thank you for your time.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity to be on this and speak with you. And I've been following you lately, seeing your work, and it's been awesome to see it paying off. And looking forward to seeing the how the semis go for you and Jason and others. And I'll live vicariously through watching you guys over the next few months.
All right. Well, as you're scanning the leaderboard, you let me know what insights you're drawing out of there and any hot tips you've got for me.
Sounds good. Sounds good.